Hey everybody, JC here with another T&I toy review. And today's review is in association with JediInsider.com, your #1 news source for everything Star Wars. And for today's review, we're going to take a look at the new Disney Store exclusive Star Wars Elite Series die-cast 6-inch scale First Order Flametrooper figure. Now this figure comes packaged in a window box style of packaging, which is pretty unique from other Star Wars products. It doesn't have like the Kylo Ren and ignited lightsaber images up in the top corner. The box is a gray with some red and black striping up in the top. It's got the Disney Store logo, and it says the figure is for ages 3 and up. And the figure's clearly displayed on the window. You've got a little sticker that says die-cast, and then down below you've got the Star Wars Elite Series logo and the name of the character. On the back of the packaging we have a bio for the Elite Series line, and then below that we have a bio for the First Order Flametrooper, and both of those are in multiple languages. Okay, so let's get this open and take a look at what's inside. Okay, so finally, after getting this thing out of its twisty tie hell, here's a look at the figure outside of the packaging. And I think it's a nice looking figure. It is definitely a heavy figure. It is, basically primarily made with all metal, so this figure is a good couple pounds heavier than a normal Black Series action figure. Now, that gives it some sturdiness, but it also makes it a little top heavy, and also I would be very worried about this thing falling off a shelf. If it falls off a shelf, especially if it's going to fall onto hard ground, it's quite likely going to chip or maybe even break. And B, if it fell onto something, an animal or a small kid, this thing, from a high shelf, this thing could really hurt. So definitely I would be very careful with it. Because again, it is a heavy figure. They have provided a Star Wars base, which I believe they provide with all the figures in this line. This is actually my first Elite Series figure that I've ever purchased, so this is really my first exposure to this line. But I believe the figure stand is included with all the figures. And the figure will stand on its own without the figure stand. It actually stands pretty well, though again it can be a little bit top heavy. It's got that backpack. And again, it's just heavy in general, but definitely you can get it to stand without the figure stand. But if you're going to put it on your shelf, I would probably recommend that you use the figure stand. Figure stand doesn't actually necessarily prevent it from falling, though, because the figure is so heavy that if it starts to fall forward or backwards, it's just going to pull right off of the stand. So don't just necessarily assume that with the figure stand your figure is not going to fall over. The figure has nice detailing. He's got the flamethrower, which one thing I don't like about this figure is that the rifle is not removable. They've actually, looks like they've sculpted the handle into the hand of this figure, so you can't actually remove it. This one you can, but on this one you can't. So it's kind of odd too, because they've actually, the backpack itself you can actually take off at the back. It's got 3 pegs and it just fits on the back hole here. So, but the cord is not removable. You can't remove the hose that goes from the gun to the backpack, and because the gun's not removable, therefore, there's not really much point of taking the backpack off. The gun is not metal. It is just a rubber type material, and it's actually somewhat soft and comes out of the package a bit warped. You can probably take a hairdryer to straighten that out, but you can see looking straight on that the front barrel is bent a little bit, because basically he's holding the gun with both hands in the packaging. And paint applications are pretty nice for the most part. However, I do have some chipping on my figure, and what it looks like, I mentioned before, this figure has a lot of twisty ties when you pull it out of the box, and it looks like some of these twisty ties maybe have scratched or chipped some of the paint, so that's something to be wary of. And chipping in general, like I said, if this thing were to fall and land on hard floor, definitely I think you would get some serious bad chipping, even dents possibly in the figure. Other drawbacks are, you can see from the back, you can see there's a number of screws visible. Here on his upper leg, you've got 2 screws on each leg, and then on his arms, again, you have 2. One is on the white, and the black one is painted. They painted the screw black. I don't know why they didn't paint these screws on the white parts white. That would have hidden it a little bit better. But as it is, they're just unpainted, and so from the back, the figure does not look as good because of those screws. Detailing on the helmet is nice. This line work is actually sculpted in the helmet. It's not just painted on. I don't know how these guys keep from overheating, because this does not look like a comfortable suit to really wear. But definitely, I like the design. I like the whole idea of getting, you know, Flametroopers. Obviously, we didn't get Flametroopers in the original movies with the Empire, so I kind of like the idea of the Flametrooper. The backpack is metal, and it's got nice detail. It's got some plastic too. The black pieces are plastic. I like details like you can see that traditional Stormtrooper O with the two lines next to it on the backpack for this figure. I think that's a nice touch. And obviously the hose is made with just a type of flexible plastic. And you've got, I don't know why, it's got the main hose that goes up into the tank, and then it's got this part that splits off that has these three pieces that don't really attach into anything. I'm sure that's movie accurate, but I don't know why that is. He's got a pouch, so just nice detailing overall. But again, I'd be wary about paint chipping with these metal figures, especially if it falls over. So the figure stands about a little bit over 6 3/4 inches tall, not quite 7 inches. So they are a bit taller than a regular 6-inch Black Series figure, so they're not quite in scale with Hasbro's line of figures. As you can see here, here's a Snowtrooper, and you can see the Flametrooper is definitely a bit taller. And then here's Kylo Ren, who should be probably taller, is also a little bit shorter than the Flametrooper. So, you know, probably if you wanted something to kind of fill in for a Flametrooper and you collect the Hasbro stuff, you know, Hasbro hasn't yet announced that they're doing a 6-inch Flametrooper, though I'm sure eventually they will. But you know, this would probably make a decent stand-in. But again, scale-wise, it's not perfect. So articulation on the figure is okay, but it's not great. Don't expect to get a ton of dynamic poses from this guy. But the head is on a ball joint, so he can look left and he can look right, and he doesn't really have any down movement. He does have some up movement with the head. Arms are attached with your standard ball hinge joint, so he can get his arm out. He can get this arm out pretty good, and he's got good rotation with it. This arm is limited. He can get his arm out about that much, but because of the gun being sculpted in his hand and with the hose, you know, he really doesn't have much rotation with this arm. We do have swivel with the hands, no hinges on the hands, and then we have a swivel waist. Now, I can't help but notice that these guys, I realize it's because the armor is probably like insulated, and so it's kind of thick, but looking at these guys, they look like they're kind of on the heavy set side. They look like they have a little bit of a belly or something. Anyway, legs are attached with ball hinge joints, so you know, you can do the splits pretty good. Can't really do his leg forward that well. That's about as much forward as you can get the leg, and really can't, I guess you can do the legs back a little bit, but not a whole lot. No thigh swivel or anything. Single hinged knee, so that's about as much as you can bend the knee. I should note, I don't know if I mentioned this, it's a single hinged elbow on these, on the arms, so that's about as much as you can bend. There's no swivel on the elbows either. However, they have sculpted this arm so that the joint, the arm moves basically inward, so basically you can get him into two-handed rifle holding poses, which is nice. Anyway, the legs, knees are single hinged knees, no swivels on the knees either, so that's about as much as you can bend the knees. And then there does appear to be swivel joints on the ankles, though with the way the armor comes down over the feet, it does limit the movement, so you can only move them a little bit. And then just one peg hole on the bottom of the feet with this one. Okay, so that's my review. Overall, I would say this isn't a bad figure. I think it looks nice. I think it's got some nice details. I'm not a huge fan of the die-cast metal on these. I think it makes the figure very heavy. I would be very worried about putting this on a glass shelf or on a high shelf that, you know, if it were to fall over. I don't know about you, but my figures always are falling over on the shelves, so, and the figure stand even doesn't really prevent it from being top heavy and falling. So I would be very worried about this figure falling off and either damaging itself or damaging something else that it hits. It's just very heavy. I like die-cast on some things, but I just don't think it's needed on every figure in a line like this. Something like including some flame effects you could attach to the rifle would have been nice as well. This figure is available. It's a Disney Store exclusive, so you'll either have to go into a Disney store or go to Disney's website, and assuming they haven't sold out. And the figures cost about $25, so they're not drastically more expensive than a Hasbro figure, which is good. But if I had to pick between a Hasbro Black Series figure and one of these, I would say I would have to go with the Hasbro. I think the Hasbro figures overall are nicer. They've got more movement and flexibility and such. So detail maybe is a little bit better on these, though again, I think you got to be worried about paint chipping with the metal. But otherwise, I definitely think I would go with the Hasbro figure. So we'll have a full gallery of images up at JediInsider.com. There's a link in the description below. And as always, leave a comment. Let us know what you think. If you're so inclined, please subscribe. And until next time, I'll catch you later.